Okay, so from what you see here, this appears to be a sword, or some would say specifically a katana, or a replica of a nihanto, a Japanese-style sword, or some ignorantly would call this a ninja sword, which it's not. Ninja swords are totally different. Specifically, it is a replica of a Japanese-style katana, or a replica of a samurai sword that was invented many, thousands of years ago. That would be true. But the question in this video is not what this is. The question in this video is why this is. Why is this katana made the way it is? What is this squiggly lines around all the blades that's called actually a hamon? Like, what does it signify? Why is it there? Why do people dazzle over the hamon or the squiggly lines on the blades of most of these Japanese style katanas? And what is this little collar, this metal collar that is pretty much the personality and signifies a Japanese sword? What is this collar all about? And then we talk about the handle. Why is the handle wrapped the way it is? Why is there fish skin, ray skin or fish skin wrapped around the handle? Why is it wrapped the way it is? What are these ornaments all about? What is this little ornament that's called a manuki all about? The saya, what's that all about? Why is the question on this video. Greetings everyone, this is Joe from Steel Forge and Fire Sword and Knife. This video is a collaboration of my research on the subject. So a little disclosure, I am not a historian or a professional in Japanese weaponry. I am a guy on YouTube that has a passion for Japanese style swords, especially the katana, the wakizashi, and so on and so forth. I will attempt in this video to explain why some aspects of these historic swords were made the way they were. Was it for aesthetic reasons? Maybe. Or also was it maybe for the purpose of creative problem solving problems in the sword that made the sword such an efficient weapon in the hands of the samurai. I'm hoping the video entertains you and enlightens you on the subject. Here we go with our historic video on why the katana is. There are many blades and weapons crafted by great smiths throughout history, but only a few gained the interest of the people. The samurai swords, especially the katana, is a weapon known as the most sought after and favored pieces of all times. The katana is a sword dating all the way back to the past in the 14th century. It was a period considered to be the most important for samurai warriors and their weapons. My objective is to give you a brief overview of some of the most important highlights of these fantastic and magical swords. But it is to be known that there were 4 vital and varying phases of the evolution of the samurai swords. These were the Koto, Shinto, Jendai, and the Shinsaku periods. Let's proceed with a closer look at the historical features that has made the Japanese katana some of the most mystical and deadly pieces in history, and the modern art that they are today. The hamon is a unique artistic design that runs part or all the length of a Japanese sword's blade. While some people assume that swordsmiths created hamons for aesthetic purposes, this isn't necessarily true. Granted, there's certainly a stylish element associated with hamons, but they were actually the direct byproduct of another swordsmithing technique, differential hardening, a byproduct that was the solution to a problem with early Japanese swords. In feudal Japan, swordsmiths discovered that heating and cooling a sword's edge and spine at different rates resulted in different properties. The hamon is essentially formed where the transition of the martensite to the blade's primary metal occurs. A traditional Japanese katana may feature a tamashigiri-made blade. From a practical point of view, the hamon is a visible indication of a differentially heat-treated blade. The process of heat treatment is very complex and differs from steel to steel. An entire video can be made explaining this process alone. The general process that was articulated long ago was the process of clay tempering. Clay and white crushed stone is normally used, but a paste of santonite also works very well. A swordsmith would apply clay to a section of the blade so that it is cooled more slowly, known as differential heat treatment. This allowed the edge to harden more quickly. The clay insulates the blade from heat and will be a thin layer as it comes down towards the edge of the blade, or the ha. It helped them to create swords that had a strong, sharp retention edge, yet a flexible spine, thus making them invaluable for samurai warriors. In time, it became the artistic fingerprint of the master smith that created the blade, which is a critical factor when sword connoisseurs analyze a katana's artistic value. The artistic expression of the smith is embodied on the steel. The beautiful byproduct of the differentially hardening is the sori, or curvature, of the Japanese-style blade. This is the signature of Japanese-style blades, especially the katana. Whether it's traditional or modern, all differential hardening processes can be used to create a curved blade. However, they also change the physical properties of the blade. The end result is a sword with a flexible spine that can flex under pressure and a strong edge that's able to stay sharp. Another age-old solution and achievement by the masters that created it. While there are many famous smiths in Japanese history that were involved in innovating the formation of the katana, two in particular are touted as some of the best in their time. As we all know, perfection takes a bit of practice, which is why the first katana didn't have the familiar curved silhouette. The first known katana sword was a straight, double-edged iron blade inspired by Chinese swords. At the end of the 10th century, the Japanese severed cultural ties with the Chinese and went on to establish their own class divisions within their society. The military warriors guarding the society became the first samurai, and the Japanese began to make their way toward creating the famous katana. Although there isn't solid evidence as to who improved the design of the samurai sword, transforming it from a straight sword to a curved killing beauty, legend has it Amakuni was the swordsmith who forged the first single-edged longsword with a curvature in the Yamato province around 700 AD. He noticed half of the samurai came back from the battlefield carrying broken swords, especially after battling Mongolian invaders, leading him to redesign the samurai sword so that it would be nearly indestructible. Finding the best iron sand ore, he built the katana with the curve, making it optimal for slicing through the enemy. The myth states Amakuni's death is not known, and he earned immortality from all the blood his blades absorbed. In the Quentin Tarantino's popular revenge flick, Kill Bill, a master sword maker, Hattori Hanzo, forges a katana so sharp it could cut God. For all the legend, myth, and pop culture hype surrounding the katana sword, it actually has a marvelous, revolutionary design. We cannot discuss historical master bladesmiths without mentioning Masamune, a man thought to be Japan's greatest swordsmith, who further innovated the technological hurdle in improving the forging of a sturdy, sharp sword. The samurai blade had to be made in a way it would stay sharp, yet could still withstand furious blows in a duel. In order to jump this hurdle, Masamune using 4 metal bars consisting of soft iron bar to protect the blade from breaking, 2 hard iron bars to keep the steel from bending, and a steel bar to be sharpened. All of the bars are heated at temperatures reaching 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit and hammered down into a slender rectangular bar to create the tamashigiri steel blade. The swordsmith pulls the katana from the fire and plunges it into the water for a rapid cooldown. Since the inner core contains small amounts of carbon, keeping the famous and functional curve, the steel would be sharpened to create the razor edge, and the soft metal made the katana unbreakable in duels. When the katana is fully forged, a professional sword polisher rubs the blade with a series of grinding and polishing stones, creating a mirror-like finish, perhaps so enemies might catch a glimpse of their reactions before their inevitable death. Creation of a katana was so vital, Shinto priests were called in to bless the process, as well as perform a spiritual purification of the swordsmith. Creators of these glorious katanas were considered artists, as they poured their hearts into the forging of these incredible weapons. In the golden age of samurai between the 13th and 17th centuries, swordsmiths were as renowned as Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. These rock star artisans were surrounded by myths just like the samurai. Ancient tamashigiri, or test cuts, were performed with a newly forged katana by slicing through a stack of dead bodies or even live criminals. And of course, in our modern age, quality steel is readily available. So this age-old process is only reserved for the ultra-traditionalist and made for the heavy spenders. Tamashigiri cutting today is practiced on materials such as tatami mats and bamboo. Same, also called samegawa or samehara, is a Japanese word for stingray or shark skin, and is also a type of shea green used to reinforce and bind the handle together, with the rough bumpy surface also helping to secure the ito handle wrap to the handle. There was an abundant material at the time and genius in part of the smiths to utilize it as they did. Problem solved. Because it is such a hardy material, it was able to withstand the vigors and demands of warfare, while also adding to the aesthetic appeal of the sword. The texture of the shark skin, or commonly ray skin, provides a textured surface to prevent the wrapping from slipping or becoming loose, as well as to keep a secure grip of the handler during battle. Ito wrap, which is commonly used with Japanese cotton or silk or imitation silk, and in historic examples also leather was used or some kind of cowhide. But today, mostly synthetic materials are used other than the ultra expensive offerings in the katana market. Ito is commonly referred to as suka ito, or the art of sukamaki, which means handle wrapping or handle cord. Its main purpose is both aesthetic and functional. It reinforces the suka and prevents technical failure when using the sword. To better understand the katana, you must know its parts. Here is a general list that defines some important parts of the iconic blade and why they were made. Ohai, a longitudinal groove or cutout on the blade to make it lighter. It also absorbs and distributes shock stress, preventing the blade from being damaged. It's not only for that lovely swishing sound you hear when the sword's edge alignment is on target. It permitted lightning-fast movements of the samurai to achieve the swiftest death strike possible. and gives our trick cutters an extra edge in modern tamashigiri. Another major achievement to make the katana the most nimble sword of its time. The purpose of the habaki. The ring of metal at the base of Japanese swords is called a habaki. With origins dating back to Japanese Kamakura period, historians generally concur that it served two purposes, one of which is to secure the handguard or the tsuba in place to protect against accidental self-injury. Bladesmiths included a tsuba on their swords, or handguard, also made of metal. The tsuba is a ring found between the sword's handle, the suka, and the blade itself. Without the tsuba, a samurai warrior or martial arts practitioner could sustain injury if his or her hand slipped while wielding the sword. The tsuba prevented this from happening. However, by creating a barrier between the user's hand and the razor-sharp blade, or the ha. The other purpose of the habaki was to prevent the sword from falling out of the scabbard, or the saya. Most saya provided a tight, secure fit for the sword for which they were designed. With habaki being slightly thicker than the blade, it allowed samurai warriors and martial arts practitioners to essentially wedge their sword inside their saya. When a samurai warrior or martial arts practitioner would draw their sword, they would generally grasp the tsuba with their thumb, pulling up with just enough force to unwedge the habaki from the saya. In ancient times, the samurai would wear their katana in times of war and peace as a symbol of status. As to why this feature was so incredibly important and invented. The kisaki is the tip of the katana, an important part of the katana that was reinforced to permit powerful frontal attacks. Koiguchi, the opening of the katana's scabbard. Some also call it a fish mouth, that when done correctly is perfectly sized to the habaki to have the katana fit snug in the saya, but can be removed and used with quick precision for draw attacks. Minuki, the ornaments found on the hilt of the sword to fit normally into the palm of the hand for better grip of the handler. Even if at first it was made to hide the makugi pegs, they also reinforced the hold of the ito to the suka or handle. The minuki is all of the above, but it is an unmistakable highlight to the aesthetic beauty of the katana. The fuchi and kashira worked in conjunction to hold the masterful ito wrapping in place on top and bottom of the handle or suka. All these pieces, the kashira, fuchi, and seppas, tsuba, and habaki, worked together to lock the handle to the blade as one. Another genius innovation by traditional master smiths, while still being able to completely disassemble from maintenance of the blade and tang to clean against the elements or blood. That I think was the whole point in why the sword was constructed the way it was, and makes it different from any other sword in history. The saya is a wooden scabbard, usually made of solid bamboo, for the sword that holds an artistic beauty in form and content, expertly made to house and preserve each individual blade. The suka is the handle of the blade, which is made long enough for two hands to grip, making it an expert two-handed weapon that is made for samurai-trained combat. Some old masters who remained alive taught the next generation the art of swordsmithing. Today, there are around 250 working smiths in Japan. They produce swords that match the quality and beauty of those in history. In this history video, I'm hoping you discovered that through collaborative efforts in the formation of the katana and weapons like it are solutions to problems and obstacles in making the Japanese katana one of the most sought after and mysterious and admired sword in history. This is why I have a passion for the craft of this sword, and in these efforts, a sword that is just as much art as it is deadly. This is Joe from Steel Forged and Fire Sword and Knife. Till next video.